Yes, good afternoon everyone. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. And I'm happy to note that we have more than 100 participants this afternoon. And again, I hope everyone is doing fine. And na-disconnect ako ng konti kanina. No? I hope it will not happen again during in the course of our discussion or in the course of my presentation. Let me first acknowledge, note that this is the second to the last in the list of our webinar sessions. First, let me acknowledge those who are with us today. I mean the universities who are represented this afternoon in this webinar session. So I have noted from University of La Salette in Santiago City, La Patria College, Santiago City. Just in case na ma-disconnect ako, just stay tuned. I will always try to go back. Using other connection. Okay, so I have mentioned La Patria College, LNU, Carlos Silado Memorial State College, Jose Rizal University, Mandaluyong City, St. Louis College in Valenzuela, Leyte Normal University, okay. So I think I have mentioned JRU, have mentioned JRU, St. Louis, Don Honorio Ventura State University, Lubao Campus, CSU Apari, St. Mary's University in Nueva Vizcaya, Southern Baptist College, Lang Cotabato. Wow, ang lalayo ng natin, ano? I have mentioned St. Mary's, NVSU, also in Nueva Vizcaya, Technological University of the Philippines in Manila. I mentioned University of La Salette, MPC, Marikina City. Kumusta po kayo dyan? Buenos dias also, ZBPSU, Davao Oriental State University, Tawi-Tawi Regional Agricultural College. Magandang hapon din po. CHMSC, Talisay. Itong Don Honorio Ventura State University, Mexico Extension in Pampanga. Okay. Ano pa? USL, Tugigaraw City, St. Louis rin ba yun? Ano yun sa Tugigaraw, yung USL? I have mentioned MPC, NEUST in Cabanatuan, Zamboanga State College of Marine Sciences and Technology, Colegio de Santa Rita de San Los, Capi State University, Jesus Montessori of Santiago City, Isabela, Southern Baptist College. Yeah, I have mentioned Zamboanga Peninsula. Infant Jesus Montessori of Santiago City, Isabela. Lyceum of the Philippines, Manila, NBSU, Southern Baptist, I have mentioned that. Siliman University from Dumaguete. Eastern Visayas State University, Dulag Extension Campus. From YouTube, live viewers, St. Louis College of Valenzuela. CSU Apari, yes. Okay, USL, University of St. Louis, yes. BSU in Baybay, Western Philippines University in Palawan. PSU also, Cuyo Campus. Eddington Mission College, Sarangani Province. Medical Colleges of Northern Philippines and International School of Asia and the Pacific. Yeah, USP also. University of Southern Philippines Foundation in Cebu City. Okay, so magandang hapon din po to our webinar participants who are watching us in our other platforms, YouTube and the UPOU Networks platforms. So this afternoon, we will be discussing, I have mentioned that this is the second to the last in our webinar session. So allow me to share my slides, my presentation. Okay, so the title of our session this afternoon is eLeadership and eClassroom Management. And if you will recall, early this year, I'm not so sure how many of you were able to participate in our session or in the survey that we conducted earlier this year. And in that survey, we asked those who had attended our webinar sessions last year, participated in the MOOCs that we offered also last year, and so the other webinar sessions that were conducted, organized by other organizations and institutions. So in that survey, one of the topics identified to be of interest to our higher education teachers are eLeadership and eClassroom management. So that is the reason why one of the sessions in this training program, in our training curriculum, was devoted for those two topics. So I put them together because they are related. So for this afternoon, our learning outcome for this session is enable the training participants to practice eLeadership and eClassroom management. And in order for us to achieve that, these are our objectives, and which will be the focus of our discussion. So one, we will define or describe what eLeadership is. At the same time, we will also be defining and describing what e-management is. We will discuss why is it important that we know eClassroom management, discuss the challenges in managing an online classroom, and discuss some strategies which can help us in managing our online classroom. Okay? So for the first topic, exactly, what eLeadership is. So eLeadership, if we're going to look at the literature, eLeadership is defined as follows. So one, it refers to leadership in the new era. I mean, if we're talking of, probably we can say that with the advent of the modern information and communication technologies, the internet specifically, then we can refer to that period as the new era. And eLeadership came in, I mean, as one of the buzzwords during this information age, fast development of technology, especially the information and communications technology. It spans telework, team, and enterprise settings. So it can cover all organizations engage in teleworking. It aims to influence changes in attitudes. So if we're going to look at it, this is the same goal of a leader even in a traditional organization. So influencing changes in attitude, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and performance of individuals, groups, or organizations, and directing them towards achieving a specific goal. Of course, every organization or even every program, activity up to activity level, we set goals, and the task of the leader is to direct the individuals or the groups or the team towards achieving the goal or goals that were set. So, but the difference is this process involved is facilitated by technology. Okay. E-leadership can also be described as a collection of leadership behaviors associated with virtual environments, often used interchangeably with virtual leadership. Areas in which communication in e-skills were most important. So I will be discussing these e-skills later, like e-communication, e-social skills, e-team building, e-change management, e-technology skills, and e-trustworthiness. So these are the definitions, descriptions of e-leadership. So if before we look at e-leadership as an abstract concept, through these definitions, we can somehow concretize what exactly is e-leadership, and if we are familiar with the role of a leader in a traditional organization. I mean, the usual traditional organization that we are familiar with. This one is a leader functioning all those things, but mediated by technology. So we can say that it is more challenging because you have to have other skills in addition to the usual skills, knowledge, and capabilities of a leader in a conventional organization. Okay. Other descriptions: a social influence process embedded in both proximal and distal context. So it can happen, I mean, in a face-to-face setting, or even in a remote setting, mediated by advanced information technologies that can produce a change in attitude. I have mentioned that. Of course, I kept on mentioning the traditional leadership, which is mediated by face-to-face communication, speaking and listening, with its rich nonverbal communication and physical presence cues, low-tech dissemination of material. So that's at the other end. That's the other end of the equation, the traditional leadership and the e-leadership. So when we talk of e-leadership, then it implies that there is the effective use and blending of electronic and traditional methods of communication, implies an awareness of current ICTs, selective adoption of new ICTs for oneself and the organization, and the technical competence in using those ICTs selected. So as I have mentioned, it is not enough that we are good leaders, especially in a conventional or traditional setting, because when we talk of e-leadership, in addition to the tasks, to the things that we need to do as leaders, we also need to know the appropriate and relevant technologies that we need to use, and we should have the technical competence in using the ICTs that we have selected. So, so you can see, when we talk of e-leadership, there is that added expectation when it comes to the use of the modern information and communication technologies in the discharge of the leadership function. Okay. So further description of e-leadership, it is not just an extension of traditional leadership, but implies a crucial change on how leaders and followers relate to each other within the organization, because it is already technology mediated. So somehow the relationship between the leader and the follower change in the context of a virtual organization. Implies the development of distinct abilities to improve organizational functioning in virtual work environments. So for e-leaders, the known social skills The non-social skills, such as the characteristics of effective face-to-face communication, may not be enough to lead in a virtual environment, because these characteristics, very good in a face-to-face communication, must be complemented with the skills to manage various virtual communication platforms. I have mentioned that already. Kind of leadership in the e-environment context where work is mediated, yes, especially the internet. However, take note of this. However, the leader is not necessarily a tech guru. I mean, we don't have to be very much tech savvy. The more important thing is we know which technologies to use that are appropriate for the kind of work that we are doing, and how we can use them effectively and efficiently. Unique leaders who are good at coping with complexity. That's how we describe e-leaders. They are good at coping with complexity, because aside from dealing with the details of running an organization or leading an organization, you should also be able to tap the affordances of the modern ICTs so you can function effectively and efficiently. Okay. Other description of e-leadership or e-leaders. E-leadership should be characterized by building trust with each member of the team and establishing a virtual presence, preventing distance from becoming a barrier. So if we can see here, there has part of being a good e-leader is for us to be able to build the trust among the members of our virtual team. So like for instance, it is of course there is always the question, when we are managing a virtual organization, when all the members of our team are working from home, of course we are okay. I think I have to share again my slide. Okay, so can you see my slides? Okay, so I'm not so sure what's happening with my connection. Okay, so I have mentioned that when we are as effective e-leaders, we should also make sure that we have built that trust among the members of our virtual team. I was explaining earlier that when I was disconnected, that in a virtual organization, in managing a virtual organization, there is always the question that keeps nagging the minds of our virtual or e-leaders. Something like, are the members of my team really working when they are supposed to work, right? So, but since you have built the trust, and you know that whatever happens, your team will be able to deliver the expected output. So it will not really even matter, right? Because you have built the trust, you know that your team will deliver, and you will be able to check on each other as to the progress of the work being done in a manner which seems that there is no distance, physical distance among the members of the team. Okay, so e-leaders should also address the team's social emotional needs. I mean, of course, we know that this is especially now. This is a very difficult time that we are experiencing now, and therefore, e-leaders especially, it is not enough that we should be concerned with the output of our team. Okay, with how our the team members are doing the work, but at the same time we should also be concerned with their emotional needs and promote healthy teams through interactions. So as we can see here, there is also the e-leader should also be conscious that it's not just the output that we should deliver. At the same time, we should also make sure that the members of our team are doing well when it comes to their emotional needs, their emotional condition, their mental health, right? And therefore, we should be able to promote that kind of effective communication skills, even socialization skills, so that we can also connect with them and facilitate the connection among themselves. So besides high levels of instrumental support and competent communication, leaders should promote trust using motivational language. Okay, especially now that there is that limitation in terms of the kind of signal, communication signals that we can get. We are not getting nonverbal signals here, right? So we have to be attuned also, and be able to motivate, inspire our the members of our team, and at the same time, be conscious if they are already experiencing some problems or concerns. There can also be signals. There can also be indicators if some members of our team are not doing well, probably health-wise, emotionally, or even in their health, mental health condition. So we have to be attuned with these indicators or signals. Like for instance, I always say that non-communication is communication by itself. I mean, when you are not communicating, then you are also sending or relaying some information. As a sensitive leader, and you have noted that some members of your team are no longer communicating with you, then probably you can have that initiative to check on them and ask what is happening. So it's not very easy to manage a virtual organization, to being an e-leader, because of this additional expectations from us, which may be easier to do if we are in a traditional organization. So to reiterate on that, effective e-leaders should communicate clearly, promote adequate social interactions, know how to use the technological media, and be able to build responsible teams. Take note of that. Even from a distance, and even if we are not meeting face to face, or we're not in a physical space, together in a physical space, in an office, for instance, we should be able to build responsible teams, inspire change, and develop trust virtually. Okay, if I may cite an example, for many of us during this COVID-19 pandemic era, we've been working virtually for more than 1 year now. No, 1 year last February or March. But specific for UPOU, I have noted that we kept on functioning as if we're still in the traditional setting. We're seeing each other, although even before the pandemic, I really cannot say that we are meeting each other face to face every day, right? It is very sometimes we see each other face to face only during meetings. But we continue and still continuing to function because we were able to build the team and able to have develop the trust that even if we are working and the leaders, the unit heads are not directly supervising them and looking at what they are doing, they know what are the expectations from them, and they are delivering the work and the outputs that are expected from them. Okay. So there is, I have mentioned earlier that e-leadership can be defined also in the context of 6 E competencies. So what are these competencies? Okay, so what are these competencies? So e-communication skills. So what are the components? When we say I am an e-leader, therefore I have to be good. in my e-communication skills. So what are the indicators? What are the indicators, or what can we look into when we say e-communication skills? So these are the descriptions. So communication clarity. Communication in electronic setting is very clear. It is well organized, allows for feedback to avoid errors and untested assumptions. So we communicate, and using a platform, where feedback is possible. So lack of miscommunication, that is something that we also need to ensure. Wait. I think I will have to change connection. I will disconnect again. I will disconnect again and connect again. We will stop recording for a while. I will stop my presentation. I will change my connection. I think there's something wrong with my connection. So to our tech team, Lisa, magdi-disconnect muna ako. Better connection that I have now. So I will continue my sharing of my slides. Okay. So can you see my um, okay lang, okay lang yung aking slide. So I was defined in the context. We have e-communication skills. I was in electronic setting is especially careful not to convey somehow communication skills. So we have management of communication flow ensures that the ease of communication does not invite excessive communications, impeding on the ability of employers to get their work done. So we don't provide so much information that may not be necessary, we just provide, or which may impede the flow of communication. We just give whatever is necessary and whatever is essential. And for me, if ever there is a need for us to have that social communication, then we do that through another platform or another email, for instance, if that is the mode of our communication. The other e-competency or the other e-skill that an e-leader should possess is the e-social skill, which can also be described as good leader support. It ensures that all employees in an ICT-mediated environment are provided with customized communication from time to time. So like for instance, this group of people, there may be a special message for them, which may assure them or will assure them that they are doing fine, or somehow to motivate or continue to inspire them. So a good e-leader uses richer media. Okay, if face-to-face meeting is not possible, therefore we can do virtual conferencing because that is what is available for us at the moment. Ensures that teams use robust interaction methods that are inclusive. I mean, if we want them to have that kind of social activities, then we provide them with a platform which they can use for the purpose. So like for instance, I know that many organizations are doing this kumustahan or online kumustahan, wherein they will just be asking their colleagues, how are you doing now? How are you doing now? And in a way, still facilitate the connection among colleagues. So they can still do the social conversation, how everyone is doing. So the organization or the e-leader should be able to provide for that as well. Okay? E-team building skill. So it is not because we are in this virtual organization or we are operating a virtual organization, we will already forget the team building. Okay? So what exactly will constitute the e-team building skill in a virtual environment? Or it can note that these are something that we also do even in traditional organizations. So team motivations ensures team building occurs in virtual teams. Make sure that the new teams have initial introductory activities, a genuine sense of their purpose, and occasional encouragement. Make sure that new virtual members are properly introduced and integrated. I think this is something that it is easy to forget. It is easy to forget to do these things, that when there are new members in the organization, since we are not reporting physically to the office, we already forget to introduce them to the other members of the organization. I think I can cite some examples here. There were people, employees at UPOU who were hired during the time of the pandemic, like project staff like that. And we really didn't have the chance to meet them face to face. The only chance that we get to meet them, to see them, are during virtual conferences or during virtual meetings. So we'll have to be mindful of this. E-leaders should be mindful that there is that even in a virtual team, there should be the kind of proper introduction and integration. Team accountability is also part of the e-team building skill, ensures that individuals in virtual teams, I think, wait, I have to get back to, I will stop sharing. I have to get back to the other slide. So the team e-building skill ensures that individuals in virtual teams are held accountable for participating and contributing, and team member recognition. Make sure that members of virtual teams get as much opportunity for recognition, rewards, development, and advancement. I mean, similar to members of face-to-face team. So as a good e-leader, we should make sure that we will still be able to do these e-team building activities. E-change management skill is another thing, part of the e-competencies. Change management provides change management techniques by pre-planning transitions, monitoring implementation, and defining technology practice with experience. So if there are changes that we need to introduce in an organization, then there has to be that good transition that will happen so that we can also make sure that the work of the team will be able to proceed without so much glitch. Okay. Also part of the e-technological skills, currency with relevant ICTs. I have mentioned that earlier when I was describing what a good e-leader is. So we have to know what are the new ICTs, new enhancements. We investigate and compare these technologies so that we can also be sure that we can select the appropriate, relevant, and when it comes to cost, also cost-effective technologies for our use in the virtual organization. We also have to blend traditional and virtual methods. Sometimes we really cannot completely disregard the traditional communication methods. Sometimes they are still relevant. Printed materials may still be relevant in some instances. Like now, now that we really cannot transform our operations digitally. Okay. I think there was that observation before that if our organization, if we're going to translate the whole processes, digitize the whole processes in our organization, we also have to make sure that the other organizations that we are dealing with are also ready for that kind of operations. I mean, they can also accept like documents which are digitally signed, right? Or not, you are not providing them with your wet signature. So we have to also know at what point, at what instance, we should be using the traditional communication methods and when e-communication methods are already acceptable. So basic technological savvy, we should have sufficient skills and inclination to deal with various types of technology breakdown. So somehow we have to know how to troubleshoot because working alone, and I have experienced that, working alone, there's no one who can troubleshoot if you're experiencing some technical difficulties, just like what I was experiencing moments ago. I mean, I have to know what to do if I encounter some technical glitches while in the process of presentation like this. So even if it's just basic knowledge on how to troubleshoot, then somehow we have to have that, because as I have mentioned, we don't have the technical team to support us always. Unlike in a face-to-face, in a traditional organization, with just one call, there's that somebody who can assist you. But in a virtual setting like this, I mean, you have to wait. And what if there is no one available to assist you? So we have to have this basic technological skills so that we can somehow provide some troubleshooting mechanism in our own if we encounter some technological glitch on our own while doing our work. Technological security, of course, we have to know that. We have to know how to protect the data, the privacy, not only our own privacy, but also of our people and the people in the agencies that we are dealing with. E-trustworthiness is the last among these e-competencies, creates a sense of trust in the leader with regard to honesty, consistency, follow through, fairness, and general integrity. So it is not just you trusting your team that they will be able, they are working, that they are delivering the output, but also create that sense of trust wherein your people will also be trusting you. Okay, so it's a two-way thing. When we talk of e-trustworthiness, it is a two-way thing. Okay, you trusting your people and your people trusting you. Okay, work-life balance. I think you have observed this as well, that when we did this work from home arrangement, somehow our work increased, right? Our the tasks that we are doing increased, and I have experienced that even during evening, I have meetings, I am doing webinar sessions, attending conferences, especially if they are organized in other parts of the world. So I observed that there's no more regard to differences in time zone. And there is also, I don't know if this is also true with you, there is that assumption that you are always available, right? You're always available because you're just there. You cannot travel. You're just there in your home, right? And with just one click in your keyboard, you can join one meeting, leave one meeting, and join another meeting. So there is that assumption that you are always available. And as I have mentioned, even if you schedule, like I am participating in some activities being organized by organizations in Europe. So their time zone is so different from us that I always find myself attending meetings, delivering talks, even at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the evening. So there is that kind of somehow there's the blurring of the lines between your official time and your rest time. So one thing that we really need to be concerned about is that we have to still make sure that there is that work-life balance. So we don't want the virtual technologies, this kind of arrangement that we are in, to intrude into our lives excessively. One time, one of our colleagues at UPOU suggested that we have this scheduler in our emails. Okay, in our emails, we have the scheduler wherein while we are doing the email in the wee hours of the morning or even at midnight, we can schedule the sending of the email in such a way that the recipient will receive it during office time. I mean, during the working period of the day. But I said that probably I will not be able to do that because I am communicating with people, with individuals in different time zones. So I don't want it that every time I will be sending an email, I will have to check, okay, what is the time difference between Manila, between the Philippines, and that particular area. So somehow it is quite difficult. And as I have said, I have mentioned also that when I send emails, I really don't expect an immediate reply. I mean, if I send an email, like I will not expect a reply, an immediate reply to that email, because I know that the people are sleeping. At least the people in Manila, in the Philippines, are sleeping during the time, and I really don't expect them to answer immediately in that email. So diversity in management ensures that support of diversity is well monitored, even in a virtual setting or in a virtual working organization, working environment like what we have now. So why e-leadership? Why this much concern about knowing exactly what it is to be an e-leader and perform the task of an e-leader? So, in fact, when this topic was mentioned during that survey that we did earlier this year, of course, I already asked the question, why the interest on e-leadership? Then, of course, the kind of working arrangement that we have now came to my mind, and that possibility that even after the pandemic, virtual organizations will continue to operate. Okay, so when you look at the literature, the following are the justification or the reasons why we have to be concerned about e-leadership or becoming e-leaders. I know that for many of our webinar participants, many of you are already in that leadership position. And in the context that we are in now, you also have to exercise or function as e-leaders. Okay? So for the past years, and it's not just during the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, teleworking is already there. I mean, we some organizations, or in fact, many organizations are already practicing it. So there is the change in organizational patterns facilitated by the digital revolution. So telecommuting, as they have that they refer to it, and in fact, there is already a law about telecommuting or teleworking. So it means to say that it is a recognized form of organization. It is a recognized form of working arrangement. Therefore, because of that, we can really expect that even after the pandemic, many organizations, probably even our own organizations, will somehow continue to have a component of telecommuting or teleworking. So the rise of teams, telework, and distributed leadership patterns relies heavily on expedited electronic communications, which leaders must master. So there's really that need for e-leadership. ICT-mediated methods are very important to new management forms. So when this telecommuting started to be dominant or to be present in the Philippines, for instance, we also asked the question: how will management be given this new mode of working and the rise of virtual organizations? So ICT mediated for e-leaders, e-managers, and also as collaboration tools for our team members, virtual team members. The change in organizational patterns and workplace also resulted in management, as I have mentioned, the e-management. The technical requirements have increased at all levels for leaders who are expected to be competent with new information and communication technologies. I have mentioned this already in my description of the competencies that e-leaders should have in this kind of organization. Of course, we have this rapid growth of work from home arrangements because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think this is also the reason why we became so much concerned about this e-leadership. What exactly is e-leadership and who are e-leaders? Okay, so of course we know what work from home means, a flexible working method. And again, there is the possibility that it will remain even after the pandemic, okay? So teleworking, work from home, may lead to social or professional isolation. And that is why I have mentioned earlier that social skills is also an important task or function of an e-leader, because when we are doing this work from home arrangement or teleworking, it may lead, and we have to be conscious of this, it may lead to social or professional isolation. That's why I also included being concerned about the mental health condition of our team members. So the professional isolation, missing of the everyday social aspect of work, because employees are physically away from other workmates, okay? hence leading to not being actively participating in information sharing and co-learning. Even the casual conversations during break time, coffee break, lunch time, going home together, right? I mean, these are the things that that were taken away. Were taken away from us when we did this work from home arrangement, and somehow there is that lack of information sharing already. I mean, if we are not so conscious about it, then somehow there are many information happening in an organization that may have been missed by some of our colleagues. At UPOU, we have this group chat using the Facebook Messenger, because um, almost everyone, if not all, probably in the organization, have Facebook Messenger. I mean, they may not be actively active. At least those who don't want to use Facebook, at least I know some of them are using Messenger for or to facilitate communication. So the Facebook Messenger app is being used at UPOU, so we can share information, and we can even casual online conversation, lumindol dito, may bagyo dito, etc. So batian ng happy birthday, ganyan. So we can still continue sharing, and somehow e-leaders should take note or should make sure that such sharing of casual conversation, online casual conversation, can still happen even in a virtual environment. So this feeling of isolation, professional isolation, can adversely affect job performance because employees do not have their supervisor and colleague support in problem solving as they would have if they are there physically reporting in the office. So e-leadership should facilitate the work conditions and keep employees motivated towards achieving the desired goals. But at the same time, we have to improve the cyber environment, the virtual environment, so that we can avoid this social or professional isolation among the members of our team. Okay, so I think I have mentioned this. It is speculated that this new global work norm would continue even after the pandemic is overcome. The future of work will be flexible, mobile, temporary, and mediated by technology. It may be that we will not do it, like for instance at UPOU, my vision really is for us to have that kind of flexibility wherein our people can work ubiquitously. They can work wherever they are, and they need not report to the office every day. So we have that kind of setup even before the pandemic. But I hope that we can really have it more organized, such that even after the pandemic, we can still have that kind of work arrangement which reflects these characteristics of the future of work: flexible, mobile, and mediated by technology. Okay. So e-leadership and e-management. So I have described e-leadership. Now let's take a look. Let's have this transition from e-leadership to e-management. Okay. There is that discussion comparing or differentiating leadership and management, or leaders and managers. Okay. So in teleworking, the role between one and the other appears more distinct. But in some cases, there is the blurring of the line already, such that leaders may find themselves to be managers, and managers may find themselves to be leaders. Okay? Here in the third bullet, it states here that teleworking even improves the efficiency of the traditional role of management, like planning, budgeting, control, and establishing administrative procedures, than exerting effective leadership, because it is difficult. It is difficult to be a leader. I have described earlier what an e-leader should be. Now, if we're going to compare the role of an e-leader to that of an e-manager, somehow we can say that the role of an e-manager, the e-management can be improved, efficiently when we are doing teleworking or for an e-manager. But both leadership and management are important in teleworking. Okay? However, adopting the traditional leadership practices to a technologically mediated environment is more complicated. That's why we are emphasizing the change from being a traditional leader to an e-leader. A distributed workforce must be led. I mean, compared to leading a team who are there with you physically in one building, for instance, or in one area, in a virtual environment, you are leading a distributed workforce, okay? And therefore, again, it requires a more complex methods in communication, performance management, or even monitoring performance, training, and also relationship building, especially if the virtual organization, by being virtual, I mean you are already dealing with different culture. So you also have in your communication, in your leadership function, in the way you deliver your function as a leader, you also have to be considerate of the differences of the culture within your organization. Okay? Again, e-leadership and e-management. In a remote work environment, management and leadership functions are combined, and managers must manage performance and implement. This is where I said that there can be that blurring of the line between leaders and managers when it comes to a virtual work environment. Many organizational phenomena transform when interacting with advanced information technologies. So there is that kind of somehow a change in the relationship, and I have mentioned this earlier. When the relationship is mediated by advanced information and communication technology. Okay, so from a management perspective, take note of this. From a management perspective, the modern information technologies can provide for the purpose of information sharing, planning, record keeping, or data analysis. And from a leader's perspective, effective leaders at e-leadership positions are successful when they can use these various technologies to achieve greater performance. So if we are working in a virtual environment, and of course, our goal as leaders is to make sure that the organization is functioning efficiently and effectively, and at the same time being able to protect and be mindful of the welfare of our people, then e-leaders should be able to use the appropriate technology to achieve that. Okay? So probably it's not enough that we use email, right? Probably it's not enough that we use email. Probably it's not enough that we do virtual meetings. Probably we still need to do that casual one-on-one or one-on-many, few of the members in our team, a conversation. So like for instance, again, if I may cite the example at UPOU, we have the different platforms to communicate with each other. Okay, so we have group chat. I mean, we're in this committee. We have this group, this office. We have this group. We communicate. We have for the whole university. But at the same time, we have the Google Hangout, wherein we can just keep we can just message each other individually, communicate with each other. I mean, if we don't want, if we will just be asking that person, how are you doing, etc., sending private messages. So we as good e-leaders, we should tap on these different platforms so we can achieve the different levels of communication. We can have the different forms of communication, and at the same time be able to function as effective e-leaders. In a very generic sense, we talk of management when we talk of resources, management of resources and processes, okay? Generic description. But when we talk of e-management, we will now integrate the use of communication network so that we will be able to manage the resources of the organization and the processes that are needed so we can produce the output, the services, etc., and whatever it is, deliver our mandate, perform our mandate as universities, for instance. So again, when we talk of e-management, there is that implication that we are using the various communication networks. Another definition or description is that it is the management mode associated with the integration of new information and communication technologies, including the internet, with all the administrative processes of a company or an organization in order to improve the productivity and efficiency. So that's the role of the manager. Compare it to the role of the leader. Compare it to the role of the leader, right? So we can now see the difference and the similarity being that of the use of modern information and communication technologies in the discharge of their respective functions. Yesterday, in a webinar session, which I delivered in one SUC doing their planning, strategic planning, the things that I have shared in that webinar session were the experiences of UPOU, especially in managing change, leadership and managing change. And one of the things that I have shared with them is that when choosing leaders of the organization, they have to make sure that they are choosing leaders and not simply managers. Okay, I am not how shall I say it? Hindi ko minamaliit ang role ng managers. Okay? Hindi ko minamaliit ang role ng managers. Managers are very important for an organization to deliver. Okay? Because they are the ones who manage the resources and the processes. So they're very critical. Their role is very critical. But when we think of leaders, we have to look for that extra characteristic, right? Being visionary, for instance, being mindful of all these things, and choosing good managers to run the operations of the organization is also one function of a good leader. Okay. Now, so after having discussed e-leadership, e-management, let us now focus on eClassroom management. Okay, so what exactly is eClassroom management? Why do we need to know about it? Of course, probably that is obvious because we are here. We are here in this remote learning, teaching and learning environment. Our ecosystem is very different now compared to the education ecosystem in a conventional classroom. So when we talk of eClassroom management, our goal is for us to teach effectively online. Okay? So to teach effectively online, we need to see ourselves as leaders rather than managers. Why? Because there are goals that we need to meet, learning goals that we need to achieve for every subject that we are teaching. But at the same time, we also have to be managers because there are processes that we need to manage so that we will be able to achieve that goal that we have set. Okay? So it becomes complicated, right? It becomes complicated when we talk of online learning. So whether learning in a physical classroom or online, effective classroom management is key to a productive environment. So it is there. It is integral to our role as teachers. Although students are not contained in a single room, teachers must be intentional about managing student behavior. That's why I mentioned that aside from being leaders, we should also be good managers. So leaders and managers at the same time. Okay? So take note that when we talk of eClassroom, our eClassroom consists of platforms for synchronous and asynchronous sessions. When you look at the literature, what you can see probably are more on how you will manage the synchronous sessions, right? But we have to note that when we talk of online learning, our eClassroom can also be in the form of the learning management system and our online course sites. So therefore, managing the learning management system, our online course sites, is also a function, of us, the teachers of the course. Okay? So challenges in e-classroom management. Online classroom management can be difficult because it implies that teachers must take an authoritative role as a manager. Okay? Teachers should work to find a balance between setting up structures. Okay? We have to set structures. When we talk of management, there has to be the structure. But at the same time, knowing that this is online, knowing that this is a remote setup, virtual setup, we also have to be flexible. We should act as facilitator. So therefore, we can see here the role of the leader, right? When we say we have to have that balance between setting up of the structure, which is part of management, but at the same time, becoming flexible, remaining flexible, because we have to also make sure that we are looking at the different aspects of the whole environment, especially our students, okay? Supports the idea of increasing student independence and ownership of learning. Note that that is also a function of an educational leader, right? Wherein our concern is for the student, not just to learn the lesson that we are teaching, but also moving forward, student independence, which will be very useful for that student even after completing the course, and at the same time being responsible to own his or her learning. So these two, the blending of the two, being manager and being an e-manager and being an e-leader, they both should be exercised in your e-classroom. Okay? It is crucial for teachers to create boundaries and schedules in online learning, but they will also need to set adjustable expectations centered on students' academic and social emotional needs. Take note that we discussed this social emotional needs as part of the function of e-leaders. Okay? Teachers have become increasingly dependent on the support of families as students learn from home. Therefore, we should also establish that good partnership, collaboration between the school, or us teachers, and the parents or the guardians of our students. Okay? Online instruction is a massive undertaking. We know that, we have experienced that during the past year, and it involves the use of many digital tools. Of course, we know that, we have experienced that. To create and foster productive classrooms virtually, teachers should be able to handle the technical side of things. Remember the e-skills, competencies of an e-leader. So dito, part of an e-classroom management, we should know, we should be able to manage, we should be able to handle the technical side of things. And in fact, when we look at the changing role of the teacher when it comes to virtual learning, part of that role is being able to handle the technical side of things. I mean, the technological expertise will also come in. Technology, pedagogy, right? Content and pedagogy, content, knowledge. They will all come in when you are teaching in an online environment. Okay, so when we use different technologies, then in the virtual classroom, we use more technologies than we do in a conventional classroom. So therefore, we have to make use of these tools, digital tools and platforms effectively, efficiently, and we should know at the same time the downside. I mean, colleagues at UPOU used to refer to this as the dark side of online learning, and that dark side was because of the technology that we are using. I have cited here cheating and plagiarism are often amplified with a world at their fingertips. So I will be discussing some of this later. Because the students are not with us, so somehow it is important that part of our management technique is making the student self-regulate their behavior. Okay, so that we can avoid this dark side of online learning. Commonly, we used to refer them cheating and plagiarism, but of course, they can take many forms. Okay. Many of the challenges of online learning stem from student engagement. If we look at the major concerns, of online teachers, student engagement, keeping the students engaged, motivated in their courses, in the online class, is one of the things that they will mention. Okay, that is aside from the concerns, behavioral concerns, cheating, plagiarism that I mentioned earlier. When learning online, students don't have the benefit of a teacher's physical presence, moving about the room and monitoring learning engagement. I mean, we cannot be moving around in a virtual room. We can probably call them one by one. That is probably the online translation of moving around the virtual classroom, so that we can somehow hold their attention and ask them to be engaged in our discussion. But again, we'll have to know the tools, the technological tools, digital tools and platforms which we can use so that we can keep our students engaged. So like for instance, in sessions, in synchronous sessions like this, I mean, how sure are we that our students are still listening to us? Okay. So somehow we can ask them to keep their cameras open, the video, their cameras open, so that we can see, we can check on them. The other thing is somehow we can call on them to recite, ask them questions, etc. So, but there may be some other tools. We can have polls, we can have quizzes, etc. Learning activities which we can ask them to do while we are on a virtual session like this. Okay, so I think here we can have a 5-minute break so that you can get your copy. I timed this virtual break to happen at 3 o'clock, but because of that technical glitches, we're now at 3:14. So let's have a 5-minute break. Time for you to get coffee, stretch, do health break, and I will resume the discussion at 3:20. Okay, so get your coffee, whatever snacks you may fancy, and we will resume the discussion at 3:20. Thank you. Okay, so let's resume the discussion. But before I continue with my presentation, I just would like to read some of the those who have encoded their perspectives, opinions in the chat box, in our chat box. Also recognize some of them, okay? So we have here, yeah, Aklan State, I think I have mentioned that. WVSU, yes, Capi State. I have, yeah. Well, I like it. From Ma'am Perlita, no, sabi niya, the current official time is 24/7. Yes, ma'am, you are right. The current official time is 24/7. There's no more 8 to 5, right? So even at during evenings, we can still yeah, and I think this has become the norm in the new normal, right? And Ma'am Angelita said, I strongly agree. Okay, from Mary. I always tell my students to message me only during office hours. Ma'am, we will be discussing that later, about the office hours. However, there are students who can only access the net at midnight. You are right, because siguro mas malakas, mas malakas yung internet pagkagabi. And it is their only time to communicate with me. Sad, but I still need to consider, even if you mentioned that you have an office hour, they should observe that, but somehow we also have to be mindful of the context of our students. We need to clothe ourselves with e-garments and bring the right e-tools, just being playful. Yes, you're right, ma'am. Oo nga. Kailangan natin na mag-transform if we want to be e-leaders. One of the concerns from Sir Alex Soriano from ISU in the management today, especially of SUs, is that there's some, if not majority, who manage things. They don't know much. On the other hand, there may many organizations who know and do things they can't manage. Oo nga. I don't know. I mean, probably because we really need to learn, Sir Alex. Because somehow and we know, we have observed this, we have experienced this. We were forced to embrace this. We had to learn along the way. We were so used with a conventional, traditional organization. Then all of a sudden, we found ourselves in this situation. And in the process, we have to perform. We have to do our role and learn at the same time. So hopefully, given the several months that we've been doing this, there can be some sort of efficiency in the way we are doing things now. Again, from Ma'am Perlita, e-leaders should not just receive messages or leave them at the sin zone. I like that. Paano kaya natin i-manage to? Kasi somehow there may be some messages that you really cannot answer immediately. No, you really cannot answer immediately. Somehow there are messages that you need to probe deeper in terms of what kind of response you are going to give. So sin zone ka muna. From Ma'am Corazon, true ma'am, sometimes teachers get sick not of the Delta but due to stress and pressure. The following can be done, like e-socialization, e-team building, and e-lab session. I like that. E-karaoke, yes. Virtual tours, yes. Using previous teachers' tours around the world, and even e-games competition. Itong e-games na to, yes. In fact, even the UP President Concepcion, recommended this. Not only for students, but also for teachers, for colleagues, for members of the virtual organization. So, nirekomenda niya rin to. Sometimes when students are cold, they leave the class. O sabi nila, ma'am, choppy, tapos na-disconnect po ako. Minsan sasabihin nilang ganun, Okay, thank you for the coffee break. I hope you enjoyed it. Sir Engineer Dixon. Thank you. Yes. Oo nga, left the meeting. Oo. Teachers adjust to internet connections of students. Yes. Because if we don't, sayang yung effort natin kasi hindi rin naman nila matututunan. Okay. So watching from ISU, Isabela State University, San Mariano Campus. Some students have good internet signals at night time. Yeah, nag-agree si Ma'am Maria Lourdes. Some leaders and managers who conducts meeting for 4 hours. Sir Reynaldo, naku. Alam mo po ba pag ako I really even in the face-to-face meetings, I was always aiming to have the meetings short. Like it should not exceed 4 hours. Ganon. Pero alam niyo po yung mga meetings namin, even online meetings, they can really last the whole day. Really last the whole day because of the so many things that we need to discuss. Those meetings, we have those meetings once a month. And because of the so many things that we need to discuss, then they really usually last for the whole day, no? Magsimula 9:30, minsan mag-end kami pa 4, 5, ganyan, with only an hour or so of lunch break. So I really admire those who can discuss everything, in just 1 or 2 hours. But actually, my observation also is that it's not discussion, but more of just one person talking and telling what to do, giving instruction. But in our meetings, usually a discussion for every item, for every decision that we need to make. There has to be good discussion so that we know that whatever decision it is, it will be an informed decision. From Ma'am Angelita, students really need motivation. What about teachers? Yes, ma'am, of course, teachers should be motivated as well. In this time of crisis, what kind of motivation can the admin provide? I know somehow we need to provide support to our teachers, and the kind of monitoring that we do and the work that our teachers are doing can also be one strategy in terms of motivating them. Being flexible is also one thing. Probably coming up with new structure, new system, new reward system, then probably that can also serve as motivation. But of course, we have to be mindful also of their social and mental health condition. Okay. So from Ma'am Ethel, SLSU Polilio, thank you then very much, Ma'am. Yes, actually before, if you have noted, and those of you who participated in our webinar sessions last year, this is a topic that we didn't discuss, we didn't include in our webinar sessions last year. But because of that survey that we had and because of the results, we deem it necessary to include it in our training program this year. Okay, from Ma'am Elizabeth, allow my students to communicate anytime. Yes, because of the internet connection. Okay. Okay. Sige po, Sir Reynaldo. Baka, yeah, okay. It is not only the students who experience problems in connection. O katulad ko kanina, di ba? Just like what happened this earlier. I mean, then I had to switch connection. But of course, not our students may not have that luxury of having different options in terms of connectivity. So my main provider is unstable, but I have a backup because of the thing, because of this virtual situation that we are in now, right? So how can the actions of students be monitored? If there is really a need, of course, okay, let's have this kind of framework. Having a synchronous session can be one strategy to monitor our students. But we always have to look at the outcome. We always have to look at the outcome that we have set for our course, for instance. While attendance to synchronous session can be one indicator. This is not the only indicator that we should consider when it comes to monitoring students. When it comes to monitoring students' action during synchronous session, we can try calling their attention like that. But of course, again, we cannot blame the student if the real problem, but that is something that we don't have a way of knowing. We just need to give the benefit of the doubt. And again, we should have that kind of trust. Diba kanina sinabi natin, building that trust. Okay, not only in an organization among our colleagues, but for our students. And somehow find a proxy indicator. Find a proxy indicator so that we can still monitor the learning of our students. And because that is, at the end of the day, that is what is important. That is what is important. Okay? The learning of the student and the achievement of the learning outcome. Okay, from Ma'am Ethel, I managed to give quiz at 3 a.m. to one of my students because that's the only time internet connection is available in their barangay. Alam niyo talaga, I always say that given the passion, the commitment of our teachers, we can really face this challenge of online learning during this time of pandemic. Let us also include working students. You're right, Sir Danilo. Their free time is only during nighttime. Our response at night is very important to them. Very considerate. Tama, sir. Tama po yung sinabi nyo. Maybe we strengthen imbibing the skill of applying brevity in our discourses. Tama po yun, ma'am. Kailangan po natin ito, lalo ngayon. It's really a challenge checking our students. Sometimes they are saying that they have low internet connection, but they are active in the social media. Punta rin po. I remember, one time, when UPOU was starting to go online, that was 2001. Of course, it was very difficult for us to have our students go into our course site, just a learning management system natin. One of our colleagues at UPOU said, "Oh, they are not accessing their online course site, but yes, they are very active. They are very active in social media." So what she did was to bring her classroom sa Facebook. Doon siya nagklase. I mean, doon niya ina-upload yung kanyang mga materials, ganyan. Doon siya nagbibigay ng notice sa kanyang mga estudyante, like your assignment is due for submission, etc., etc. So ganun yung ginawa niya. Of course, we cannot say that is very effective, but somehow at the time that we were new in online learning, it provided a platform to communicate with the students where the students are. So that the construct then was be where your students are. And we know also that at the time, online learning was very new to our students. Mas social media sa kanilang internet eh. So let's use the social media. So that was her construct at the time. Let's use the social media to communicate with them. Again, now we should be mindful with protecting the data of our students. Be crisp on meetings and be able to stick to set time limit. Minsan talaga Ma'am Perlita, medyo mahirap talaga. If the meeting is only informational, 1 hour is long. But yes, tama po Ma'am Corazon, but if the meeting is about an issue concern, then time is something almost infinite before coming up with a solution or decision. However, this thing depends on the skill of the leader in handling meetings po. Of course, kailangan focus yung discussion. Both teachers and students must invest on technologies because we cannot always rely on our institution's resources. Email etiquette, mamaya po ipag-uusapan natin yung mga email etiquette, So I love giving the benefit of the doubt and building trust. Oo, tama po 'yun, Ma'am Benji. Okay. So I will stop reading your comments. I hope we can still have time later to discuss this. But meanwhile, I will continue our discussion. Okay. So eClassroom management, what are the strategies so that we can have we can be effective in our e-classroom management. So one is establish the e-classroom norms and expectations, then be consistent. So what are these norms? Okay. So I have put here, are you worried that your students will be showing up during your synchronous sessions in their pajamas? Okay, so in order for us, I mean, if it really worried, if it's really something to be worried about for us teachers, then that is one of the things that we need to set as a classroom norm, an e-classroom norm. So these are some of the things that we also need to consider when establishing the e-classroom norm. So involve students. You agree. You just don't set the rule, but sometimes you also need to ask them. And come up with an agreement. What are these norms? Okay. So we know that there's no hard and fast rule when it comes to synchronous session. Like in fact, in my case, as long as you are decent enough, to be seen, then that's okay with me. So here, there is this suggestion that in involving the students, we need to explain to them why we need to set class norms and why you are giving value to their inputs. You can ask them, send them to breakout groups so that they can make their own list of norms, or you can give it as an assignment to them. And then when you have, when they have listed what they think should be the norm in the class, then you can finalize the list and come up with an agreement for everyone to follow the norms in the list. So if students have a say in creating the rules, they will be more likely to follow them because it came from them. They have inputs in the development of the norms. So be aware that norms will evolve, and having norms check in, like for instance, every Monday can provide a structure to each week of online learning. So what are the examples? What are the examples of e-classroom norms? Have a dress code. So the dress code does not need to be fancy. Of course, we know that in this work from home arrangement, we can dress. I mean, any way we like, even if attending meetings. Marami ng storya diyan. Formal na formal ang pang-itaas, pero naka-shorts pala sa ibaba. 'Di ba? May mga ganyan tayo. Last week, we had this we call it Inuman party because it's online, because we celebrated some birthdays in the office, and then what the instruction there was, it is a pajama party. And then one of my colleagues said, that's not a problem to me because I'm wearing pajama the whole day. So that's the kind of thing. So the dress code does not have to be fancy. Always just can be as simple as always wear a shirt and pants and no pajamas. So it is also one way of somehow providing that kind of ambience, that what you have is a class, right? Class yung pupuntahan mo eh. So you should dress appropriately. So it is as simple as that. Decide on signals. So when it comes to virtual classroom management, it is not easy to raise hands. Pag minsan, teachers may not see the raise hands, right? So you can come up with signals and agree on the meaning of this signal. So for example, a thumbs up in the webcam could indicate I have a question. You teachers can have signals too, so that your students will be paying attention to what you are saying. Educate students about plagiarism. So plagiarism should also be part of your classroom norm. Online learning lends itself to increased plagiarism. We know that. I have mentioned that. Students are working on technological devices with access to endless resources. And the temptation to just copy information is there, no? So therefore, we have to teach them. We have to remind them not to plagiarize, and if possible, remind them, inform them as well of the consequences if they will do it. And at the same time, we can also emphasize digital citizenship. Earlier, it was mentioned by one of our webinar participants that hold office hours. So ito, very difficult to differentiate effectively in an online classroom. But here it's still recommended. And as mentioned earlier by one of our colleagues, sometimes it is still necessary for us to work even beyond the office hours that we have set. But at least for most of our students who have access to a good internet connection, they will be mindful that they can consult with us, we can respond to their emails, to their inquiries, and we can even have a one-on-one conversation with them only during these office hours. And if there may be a need for us to respond to emails like in the middle of the night, in the wee hours of the morning, it is highly possible that there will just be a few of them. Okay. Communication, established communication norms. It is very important, especially in an online environment. So like for instance, when video conferencing, establish norms and expectations like background noise, camera use, and contributing to discussion ahead of time. So we will be discussing, you should be discussing that with your students. So like for instance, should you keep your camera always open? But of course, some of our students will say, internet connection is unstable, I cannot open my camera, right? And how to contribute to the discussion, something like wait for you to be recognized before you speak, or you can just use the chat box if you want to contribute to the discussion. So norms are also necessary for typing in online forums, so asynchronous in asynchronous session. Remember that we are working with students and you will encounter some who don't understand online communication etiquette. So we need to explain that to them. Later, I will be discussing some of this online communication etiquette. Put distractions away, okay? Of course, studying from home, we are aware that there are many distractions. They have their pets there, right? Family members, television, gadgets everywhere. So somehow one part of the norm, a component of the norm, is for them to consider it like really a classroom. And those distractions, like you're not supposed to bring your pet in a classroom, right? So something like that. You should explain why these things may not be accepted and have that as part of your norm. Okay. So the second aspect of eClassroom management, again, I have mentioned this, is to use appropriate technology properly. So we have here appropriate technology and using them properly. So use the right technology to promote learners' engagement. We know that already. And here, treat the webcam like a person and the camera is the student. So look at the camera in the eye. As looking a student in the eye. When we are talking to our student, we look at them at the eye. So we consider the webcam as our student. And then at the same time, we show our students what proper eye contact looks like when we are in a virtual session. Practice it when you talk to them. Encourage them to smile, respect each other, and talk politely. Okay? The internet is our window into a person when we are in an online environment, and we need to test the technology beforehand. Sometimes when I'm using a new platform, in delivering webinar session, I have to have a technical dry run. Especially when sharing a screen. Again, I mentioned that yesterday I had a webinar session. We use a different platform and I was not able to share my screen from my end because I was not able to practice the platform. I don't have access. I didn't have access to the platform before the webinar session, so I was not able to practice it before the session itself. So I had difficulty sharing it from my end. So that's one thing that we also have to do in terms of managing our e-classroom. I have mentioned earlier that one of the major concerns of us teachers, online teachers, is in terms of student engagement. And in fact, part of our webinar sessions on delivering course in an online learning is how to keep our students engaged. So part of our e-classroom management, because an e-classroom will be difficult to manage if our students are not engaged in the discussion. So therefore, our e-classroom should be designed for engagement, whether it is a synchronous session like this or asynchronous in an online course site or in a learning management system. So poor learning management is the main reason why issues arise in online learning. Okay? So take the time to understand the interest of the students and somehow design your discussion in such a way that it will cater to the interest of the majority of the students and at the same time aligned to your lesson. So you design each session. You design each session, you design each discussion forum in such a way that it will be interesting to your students and you will keep them engaged and participate in your discussion. Okay, so here, it was also suggested that we create virtual spaces in our e-classroom, especially in our learning management system. Serve different purposes, not just a discussion about the academic or the lesson. Perhaps there can be a lounge or chat room for side conversation. Okay, so there's the area for your agenda, syllabus, assignments, and deadlines. Have a parking lot area for questions. I think there is that discussion about this later. In my courses, in the online courses that I am teaching, I usually have a virtual coffee shop, a virtual tambayan. Okay, so the rule there is, of course, you can drop by anytime. It is open for the whole semester. And you can discuss anything as long as, one, you will observe netiquette, strictly observe netiquette, and there's no selling of anything, something like that. So I have to make also some rules. I have to make some rules when it comes to our virtual coffee shop. Virtual kapihan ang tawag ko doon. Remember also that in a traditional classroom engagement, in a traditional classroom, engagement is a nice to have. But in a virtual classroom, it is something that we should have. Okay? When teaching online, the priorities flip. If we can gauge our students, they may stop showing up. And if they stop showing up, we may never get them back. If they lose interest in our course, they may drop from the course. So that's why it is very important. It's very important that we design our classroom so that we keep the interest of our students high, the level of interest is high, and they will continue participating because this is something that is interesting for them. Okay, so here students working online have access to endless sources of information. They don't need a teacher to explain everything or something for 45 minutes. Probably we can devote some time for hands-on activity. So there is that suggestion later for us to flip our classroom, our online classroom. Students learn more through activities and design those activities such that it will also be interesting or aligned with their interest. Communicate with your students. Again, as being e-managers, we should communicate with our students. It's part of the norm. And this is something that we should be doing. Here again, office hours for video conferencing is mentioned again. Another suggestion, having teachers or support staff call home and engage with parents can also help support those connections. I mean, we have to connect with our students. Strong communication channels, the way we communicate with them, and the different ways of contacting them. In here, small groups, connecting with small groups is also recommended. Communicate clearly. it is important to make the communication process simple, positive, and accurate, especially if we are giving feedback to our students. Depending on how you provide both students and parents information, you should state the available methods. We have to inform them, okay, class, I will be communicating with you through email, Facebook Messenger, and if necessary, text messaging, so that they will be on the lookout. They will be on the lookout for messages or communication coming from you. It is also suggested to have a place for messaging or announcements. A Google Doc, shared document can also serve that purpose. Have an FAQ page, whether for assignments, content, class procedure, etc., which can easily be accessed by our students. Strong sense of community. Again, in remote instruction, just like in a virtual organization, in a cyber organization, there can be that feeling of isolation. Therefore, as teachers, and this is also a function of the e-leaders, take note of that, we'll have to make sure that there can still be that connection among our students. In terms of classroom management, we have to note that students won't treat each other well if they don't know each other. Therefore, we have to make sure that they know each other. Think of this step as a proactive classroom management by building community right from the get-go and encouraging it throughout the whole semester. You will save yourself from some issues later on because they know each other. They may develop the kind of friendship and even connect with each other outside of a class hour. Then it will now be easier to manage and even monitor them. Have small groups create contacts or contracts about how to work together. There's nothing more frustrating to an online student than feeling isolated during group work. And frustration leads to missed deadlines, rude interactions, and we have to find ways also to learn about them and for them to learn about us. There can be that kind of sharing of information among the members of an online class. It's here, humanize the voices behind the writing. I always also say that somehow putting our picture in our profile, as our profile, also helps in getting to know each other. Ganito pala yung itsura niya. So we also encourage that. So somehow we can put a face to the text, to the post made by our students. Build positive relationship between teachers and students. Okay, I have mentioned that. Create connections with small group sessions. So we communicate with smaller groups. Sometimes we can identify this group who may be needing extra assistance. So we communicate with them. Doesn't have to be in the big class. We can set a schedule a meeting with them. Okay. Designed for effective lesson delivery or the conduct of online classes. So that's not the number 5 tip or strategy in eClassroom management. So teach lessons that privilege text. Earlier, we mentioned that some of our students may have limited internet access. Sometimes they can only access the internet during evening. So in making or teaching lessons, in providing instructional materials to our students, let us privilege text, and not only the online resources. Okay, so in all virtual classrooms, we have to note that the communication that involves facial expression, body language, and tone of voice are reduced, but may not totally be eliminated. Okay, so we have to think along this line that somehow our students may not have access to a good, stable internet connection, and there may be some limitations in the form of communication, form of signals that they may be sending us. Add visual cues to your lessons. Okay, so in here, if the internet connection is good, then you can do screen sharing. You can even have them choose background, which may be related to your lesson. But of course, again, this is something that should not be compulsory because we have to be mindful of the internet connectivity of our students. Here, consider a flipped instructional model. Also, it will be useful for the students who may have problems with their internet connection. So we know that it's hard enough trying to control a classroom while giving your lecture. So the recommendation is for us to consider flipping our eClassroom. So this approach involves students going over school lessons, lectures, assigned readings, videos, etc. on their own as an independent learning time, and not necessarily as teachers doing lecture during synchronous session, okay? So doing homework is really when students get their hands dirty. So it's nice, like homework, we usually design homework as the application of concepts, right? But it is during those times that the students may be needing assistance from the teacher and from their fellow learners. Therefore, in a flipped classroom design, homeworks or the application of concept will be done in the classroom or during the synchronous session when the teacher is with the students and the students are with their fellow learners, and listening to lectures will be done as the homework. So in that way, you flip your classroom. Use your time together, that is the synchronous session, to go through practice problems. You're more likely to engage students, elicit questions, and even encourage debate. This way, your students will be participating actively. You will keep them engaged if they will be part of the whole session. So save the dry lectures and rote instruction for when the students are off camera and working on their own time. Okay, even your lectures can be recorded and you can send them to your students and ask them to watch the material later, okay? Here, create a question for parking lot. During discussion, of course, there will be questions from the students, and sometimes those questions can be disruptive, or they can disrupt the flow of whatever it is that you are discussing at the moment. So what you can do is have a question parking lot wherein they can encode their questions there, as stated here in the illustration. Have a question, park it here, and then those questions can be discussed later. As what we are doing in our session now, our question parking lot is our chat box. And then later, when we go on a break after the discussion, then we can go back to this question. Then we can also curate the answers in an organized way, such that when we answer the question, sometimes there are several or similar questions, then we can answer those questions at the same time. Set academic expectations. They should know what are the expectations from them, especially when it comes to their own responsibility for their own learning. Acknowledge student accomplishments, recognize student achievements, and if possible, implement incentives. I mean, even open badges can be a form of incentive in an e-classroom. Okay. Make online instruction accessible for all. Again, here, sometimes we cannot expect students to have access to the internet at the same time. So we have to record all discussions, and we have to make them accessible to our students at the time that they are ready to access it, or especially at the time that they have access to the internet. Be present. Teaching presence in an online environment is very important. And we can have this teaching presence in terms of designing our eClassroom, facilitating the discussion, the online discussion, and by providing direct instruction to our students. So that's the teaching presence when we talk of eClassroom. Okay, so now let's go to the netiquette. As part of eClassroom management, netiquette is also important. So right from day one, we have to already, part of the norm, part of establishing the norm is also informing our students of the netiquette that they should observe when they are attending our eClassroom or when they are there in our eClassroom, whether it is the synchronous session or the asynchronous online session. So proper conduct in an online class is just as important as in a face-to-face classroom, with similar repercussions for failing to maintain decorum. So we should also tell them that if you will not follow the netiquette as discussed and as prescribed, then there will be repercussion. I remember that at UPOU, we remove, if the student is really unruly, we remove the student from the online course site. We eject them. So that can also be done. If the student really is disruptive already. Okay. So we also have to, again, inform them of the repercussions if they did or have this misconduct in our eClassroom. So there may be some policies in our institution, or we can develop policies in our institution to guide us in terms of this eClassroom management. Okay, so some we can say that some soft misconduct warning can be done, but there can be a misconduct which can really be addressed by concrete repercussions. So like, for instance, cheating an exam, plagiarizing a paper can also be forms of misconduct which require concrete repercussions or even disciplinary actions. So when communicating online, I think this is familiar to many of us, but sometimes it is important for us to remind our students of this netiquette when communicating online. So for instance, treat your instructors with respect. Always use your professor's proper title, like doctor or professor. And you can call them by their first name if you allow them to do so. So like, for instance, you can say, okay, you can call me by my first name or by my nickname, etc. But otherwise, our students are expected. So this is a reminder for our students. And at the same time, something that we should also be observing. So use the proper title. Clear and concise language, irrespective of readers' time and attention. We cannot be reading long emails, right? Sometimes when I have to send a long email, I have to put there a warning of some sort. Note this is a long read or long email, so that the reader can expect reading a long email from me. Remember that all college communication should have correct spelling and grammar. This is also a practice of good communication. So we have to remind our students that they should be mindful of their spelling and grammar as well. Avoid slang terms such as "what's up," texting abbreviations such as "you" instead of "you." Standard fonts. The usual is the readable sans serif, size 12 or 14. Avoid using caps lock. We know this already. Avoid the use of emoticons. Not everyone knows how to interpret them. Be cautious when using humor or sarcasm. We don't know how they will interpret it. Be careful when sharing personal information. Of course, we know that already. Email etiquette. Again, we have to, when sending an email, we have to have the descriptive subject there in the line, so that the one receiving the email from us is already aware of what the communication is all about. Again, be brief. Put the most important part at the very beginning. Okay, they may not read it to the end. So like, for instance, if your email is about requesting for a consultation, then that should be at the first part of your email. I would like to request for a consultation because I find this topic very difficult to understand, blah, blah, blah. So you can justify it, but your purpose for sending the communication should be already stated at the very beginning. Avoid attachments unless you are sure your recipients can open them. Sometimes we attach documents that are in the different format when we are using different software, and we are not so sure whether the one receiving the communication can open them. Sign your message with your name. This is very important because we don't know. I mean, if it's just an office, who in the office are we communicating with? So even for us, when we are communicating with colleagues, with other agency, with other organizations, it is important that we sign our email with our name, okay? Then we have to make sure that they know how to contact us back. Think before you send the email to more than one person. Does everybody really need to know or see your message, especially when you are copying everyone in the organization? Are we really sure that we want everyone to read or see our message? Be sure that the message author intended be passed along before you click the forward button. O, kailangan we have to know to whom we will forward that particular email. This one, if you are sending an email while upset or angry, think about not sending it until you've cooled off. A 24-hour resting period is often a good idea. Kasi even if it is just an email, they are saying that they can still read through the emotion. I mean, feel the emotion of the one writing the email. Kung galit, kung masama ang loob, etc. So nararamdaman daw noong bumabasa. Okay? When it comes to the discussion board, these are the netiquettes. Make posts that are on topic and within the scope of the course material. If necessary, reread the instructions from your instructor. Again, this is something that we should remind our students about. Take your post seriously and review and edit your post before sending or uploading. Would you put sloppy writing with poor grammar in a formal research paper? So we have to look at all these things. Be as brief as possible while still making a thorough comment. Remember, this is a discussion area, not a doctoral thesis. So sometimes we teachers, we provide something like not more than 200 words, something like that. So that can also be done as one of the guidelines that we can set for discussion forum. Always give proper credit when referencing or quoting another source. So don't copy and paste another student's post and claim it as original, as that is essentially plagiarism. There is also such thing as plagiarizing oneself. And I have noted this in some of my students. In my courses, discussion forum, posting in discussion forum is graded. So because of that, probably some of my students are thinking that I don't read what they have posted, especially if they are long posts. No, even if I say don't post long, etc., they will still do long posts. So what they do is they have posted something in one forum, and then they will copy it and post it again in another forum. So somehow I was able to catch that. In some instances, I was able to catch that, and I told the students that is basically plagiarizing yourself. And because of that, I will not be giving grades to the posts that are similar to the one that was originally posted already. So at the same time, they should not copy the posts of other students, because again, that is plagiarism. Be sure to read all messages in a thread before replying. So you don't just reply. Make sure that you understand what it is that you are replying to. Don't repeat someone else's post without adding something of your own to it, because that's just copying what they have posted. Avoid short generic replies. This is already part of my course guide and part of my guidelines. I don't give grades to replies such as I agree. You should include why you agree or add to the previous point. The point of a discussion in an online course is to help you, the learners, learn through in-depth consideration of important things. And you don't just say, I agree or I don't agree. You should explain your position when it comes to the discussion topic being looked into. Always be careful of others' opinions, even when they differ from your own. When you disagree with someone, you should express your differing opinion in a respectful, non-critical way. This happened, especially during the early years of UPOUs being online. There were really disagreements, and it was really some of those disagreements really reached that point that some of the students took it personally. Okay? So nag-away-away talaga sila in the discussion forum because of the differences in the opinion. So at the same time, be open-minded, as that is the one of the major points of participating in an open classroom discussion. So we have to be open to the opinion of our of the classmates and other members of the class, and be respectful of those opinions. Chat protocol, somehow this is the same as somehow similar to email. But there may be some aspects here that pertain to chat conversation alone. So allow each learner to complete his or her thought before responding. This means do not interrupt. Or it's the same thing as in the chat. I mean, you let the others complete what it is that they have to say. Be patient. Not everyone has advanced keyboard skills. Avoid having side conversation. It's rude not to pay attention. Signal when you have finished a statement. Some use a happy face to signal they have completed their input. Signal when you don't understand, using a question mark to get the facilitator's attention. Signal your reactions by using an exclamation mark for surprise or a sad face for disagreement. So in a chat, it is saying here that you can use emoticons, so you can also convey what it is that you are feeling at the moment. Again, do not shout by using capitals. Do not leave your computer during a scheduled session to get your attention. It is impossible to get your attention if you leave the room. Somehow you have to tell those in the chat room that you are leaving the room for a while. Keep statements brief. Ito, nakaano pa rito yung limit to the number of characters. So we have to disregard that. Prepare notes and key ideas ahead of time so that you can engage in the discussion without trying to figure out how to word your statement. So it means to say that in a chat, in an academic discussion chat, you have to be prepared and study the topic well before you join the conversation. Expectations and guidelines for interacting in the online environment. In all interactions, remember that there is a person behind the written post who has feelings and can be hurt by what and how you interact with him or her. It is easier to say something online when you do not have to look at the person in the eye. So never post anything that you would not say to the person face to face. Adhere to the same standards of behavior online that you follow in your real life, the ethical behavior. Respect other people's time and bandwidth. We have mentioned that. Refrain from disagreements that lead to personal attacks. Make yourself look good online. Take time to check your spelling and grammar. Prepare for discussions prior to engaging them. I have discussed that. Share your knowledge by offering help for learners who have questions, and forgive other learners' mistakes, and be patient and compassionate for all learners in the course. So it is very important that these guidelines should be given to the students. And this will help us in managing our e-classroom. If everyone in our e-classroom will behave following the accepted netiquette, then it will be easier for us teachers to manage the synchronous session as well as our asynchronous online classes. Okay? Here is another tip. RIGHT is the acronym. WARM, being warm online, is a way of reminding others that it is people who are engaged in communication and not software. I mean, we may be using, remember this is a mediated communication. We may be, it may appear like we are communicating with a computer, right? Because it is mediated. But there are people behind the computer. So there has to be that warmth. responsive. Try to return personal messages as soon as possible and set up a regular rhythm of communication for other responses. Okay, so do not wait for so many days before you respond. In my case, especially if we are receiving so many emails in a day, it may really be difficult for us to respond immediately. So for my students, I always say, if I don't respond after 3 days, resend your email. Resend your email so that it will again be received. It will be on top of the emails that I receive for the day. Inquisitiveness, defensive is reduced if people ask questions rather than make statements. Okay, so let's ask question. If we are unsure, let's ask question. Tentativeness, a question framed in a tentative manner, reduce defensiveness related to the previous point. Empathy, put yourself in the shoes of your audience so that we will know, we can project, we can predict how they will feel if we will be sending such communication. Okay, part of eClassroom management is monitoring the learner's progress. Okay, remember that monitoring is a function of a manager. Okay, so monitoring learners' progress is also very critical in online learning. Activities pursued by teachers to keep track of student learning can be the following: questioning students during synchronous online sessions to check their understanding of the material being taught, assigning, collecting, and correcting homework, recording completion and grades so that we can see the pattern. We can even see the pattern of whether they are submitting on time, right? So that, or whether they are submitting at all, right? Because when this information, when we can see this information, they can also signal something to us. There may be some problems on the end of the student, and somehow it is important that we address those problems and concerns immediately. Conduct periodic reviews with students to confirm their grasp of learning material and identify gaps. I mean, we can have probably just like what the usual periodic examinations, or even showing what they have learned, reporting what they have learned, if we don't want it to be a sit-down written exam. Administering and correcting tests, actually, that has been mentioned. Viewing student performance, data collected and recorded, and using this data to make needed adjustments in instruction. So we look at the data, we look at the numbers, we look at the pattern, and then let us see. That is one way of looking at, one, whether our students are still engaged, whether our students are still with us, and whether they are performing well in terms of their academic standing. Monitoring student engagement, it can be attendance in their live sessions and their participation in the discussion forum, whether discussion during online synchronous session and discussion in our online course site. Formative assessments can also be done, as what has been mentioned. Number of chats in live sessions. Are they participating in the live chat, right? Teacher-student interaction, and of course, when it comes to their comments, probably in our video recordings. Okay, these are some of the references materials. Of course, you will have the recording of this session. You can go back to these materials if you want to know more about the topics that I have discussed. Okay, so that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for that. And we can now discuss, if you have questions, sharing, we can now discuss them for the next 20 minutes or so. Okay? So if there are questions at this point, then probably I can we can discuss them. There are many things here in our chat box. So I will try to read some of them. Yeah, so meron ditong lumabas na some universities, some teachers help students to buy load for the internet. The failure in flexible learning is the development of independent learning skills. It really takes time when it comes to developing independent learning skills. Takes time even for us teachers. It takes time for us to really master the art of online teaching, even reading on screen, correcting manuscripts on screen. So it takes time. Using the FB as my teaching and learning platform from Ma'am Juvie. We utilize the FB for social learning, yes. Leaders should be dynamic as well as our learners, teachers, and stakeholders are dynamic. Traditional things may no longer be feasible. Tama po yung sabi nga, if we teach the learners today as we did it yesterday, we wrap them off tomorrow. That's from Jan Dewey. So we have to know. We also say that some of few years from now, we will be teaching the Generation Alpha. And these are the new breed of learners. So we have to teach them based on their profile. New learnings and input should be considered. From Ma'am Corazon, I sometimes tell my students if they don't want to open their cameras, I trust and have no doubts that they are the ones behind the camera. Oo nga, Ma'am, minsan mahirap yun, ano? Yeah. So I think it depends on the student's motivation. There must too much to require the students to be in their school uniform. Well, actually, not really requiring them to be in their school uniform. Probably just dress decently. Something like, how do you want others to see you? I mean, and this is a class. This is a class. This is not a party. So something like that. So dress appropriately. Probably that's not too much to ask from our students. From Ma'am Mary G. I made FB group for every section. Yes, many teachers do that. Not all students can join the Google Meet, so they would just watch the FB live. Kasi mas maliit daw, mas konti daw yung bandwidth if it's for the using Facebook Live. Third year students are required to wear their uniform, but not my first year. Sabi ni Ma'am Christina, bakit po kaya? Kasi yung third year ay may uniform na. So it's easy for them to wear their uniform. Now, if we will be asking the first year students na wala pa silang uniform, ano po? Okay, as long as the top is presentable, then it is fine. Kahit naka-short na dun sa ibaba. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. We can only see half of their body. We also practice involving students. Yeah. Plagiarism, we remind them from time to time. Yes, I agree. Sir Reynaldo. We have to remind them of our rules on plagiarism, always. I like this from Mary G. I am distracted seeing the father of my student without shirt sweeping the floor. O, bigla lalabas sa camera, no? To be honest, I have a problem with noisy disruption on my end. Yeah, with many chickens and dogs, which my headset could not filter. Siguro ito talaga yung reality natin ngayon ano? Talagang pagka nag-lecture tayo, or even from our end, tama si Ma'am Christine, may titilaok na manok, may aso, di ba? May batang biglang iiyak. So somehow we have to accept those realities. I mean, as part of our normal now, as part of our now normal. Ito may suggestion, adjust the microphone setting to filter the sound. It is found in the settings po. We use the messenger for announcement. Yes, tama po si Ma'am Ethel. Rock Angel, establishing a learning space at home is ideal for those who have the capacity to establish such facility. Tama po yan. But not among economically poor students. I am doing buti pa si Sir, phenomenological research on the home learning environment of students doing online class. One of the problems emerges that economically disadvantaged students cannot establish a learning space in their homes, especially when their house is small and has no division. Coupled with with lockdowns, nasa loob lahat ng bahay. Somehow we really have to be understanding of the context of our students and really provide them with options on how they can study. Hindi lahat online. Oo, kasi kung mahirap talaga na yung maging online sila. So kaya kanina sabi, let us privilege text and not only the online mode, no? So that we can also provide them with that learning opportunity. Okay, so ito na mga thank you na to. From Ronald, Sir Ronald, have the criteria for STAR teachers. Ito yung motivating the teachers, ano? Our discussion on motivating the teachers. Suggestion is Sir Ronald, have the criteria for STAR teachers during the pre-pandemic time. Okay, Likewise, have the ideal qualities of effective school administrators as we knew them. Kasi nagbago rin in a virtual learning environment. So we can naman, in fact, even monitoring teacher productivity during the work from home arrangement, it is different now. It is different, and we are encouraging school administrators to really look at the different ways by which we can monitor the work. We can monitor the work, the quality of work of our teachers who are working from home and not reporting to school. So there can be different framework of evaluating who are the good teachers and who are the not so good teachers. And in that way, then we can have a different reward system or different ways of evaluating. Different ways of evaluating, as what you have mentioned, Sir Ronald, different ways of identifying who are our star teachers. But I would just have to mind you that especially for our teachers, those who are new in online teaching, there is also that learning curve. So we also have to consider that. We also have to consider that in this kind of environment, even if you are a very good teacher in a traditional way, there is that learning curve and you may not be performing well. Not because you are not a good teacher, but because of the other elements involved in the teaching process in this online environment. Okay? What is our activity? Sa ano na lang po, kasi ito po kasing natin, itong topic na to, hindi na to kasama doon sa ating i-echo, doon sa i-design natin. I mean, siguro nasa inyo na po yung option whether you will include this as part of the training program that you will do in your school. Pwede rin naman po, but it is one of those modules which are not compulsory. So I will put the activity in our course site and you can access it there, because I'm also thinking of what kind of activity will support the the project which you will be doing. Okay? So maraming salamat po, mga dami naglalagay dito. Maraming salamat po, many realizations, many learnings. Okay, so salamat. E-mentorship be taken into account for the next training. E-mentorship, yung suggestion ni Ma'am Angelita. Sige po, Ma'am, we can look at, because we will again see what are, because we have to take the training also at the next level. If you have noted, while we still discuss some of the basic things, concepts, practices that we need to know as online teachers, we somehow elevated the discussion because we know that you already have the experience of online teaching. So what will now be the next level of building our capability as teachers? Not necessarily as online teachers, but probably, again, as we have mentioned here, as teachers of the next normal. Right? As teachers of the next normal. So probably e-mentorship is something that we can look into. Okay, so a lot of students do not want to turn on their cam during synchronous sessions. I do not mind anymore what they are wearing. Opo, yeah. What to do if you call a student to be side, then suddenly the student leave the meeting and join later when someone else was called? Eh di tawagin natin ulit. Tawagin natin ulit or bigyan natin ng assignment na isasubmit. Right there. E di sabihin nyo, if you're having problem with the internet, this is the question, submit it now. Para something like that. Just so that we can have, that student can have that sense of participation, that sense of being part of the class. Okay? I had a student who has her grandmother attending classes with her. I like this. From Ma'am Marifel. So, at the end of the course, baka dalawa yung bibigyan mo ng certificate. Pati si Lola, bibigyan mo na rin ng certificate. Other teachers don't want to explore LMS. If it will be from Ma'am Hercely, if it will be an institutional policy, then they will not have any choice. We have to check our students from time to time. Some students are having part-time job. Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. Ma'am Heidi Joy, can you email us about your problem accessing the course site para po ma-address natin yon. Okay? From Ma'am Christina, I use FB group page, group messenger, Google Meet, yes. However, I really find it laborious. Totoo po yun. Actually, ang pagtuturo po online mas matrabaho. Mas matrabaho po yun kaysa sa magturo ng face-to-face. As long as we are online, on an online program, we will continue to apply e-leadership skills. Tama po. Okay, salamat po ng marami. I message my student personally if I notice that he has the same answer. Oo, actually, Ma'am Jocelyn, ginagawa ko rin po yun. Kapag ka napansin ko, kasi we really don't want to embarrass the student, no? So, ang ginagawa ko, pag napansin ko na pareho ng sagot, or kinopya sa internet yung sagot. So, nagme-message ako and sinasite ko yung yung pinagkuhanan niya. Nilalagay ko, I put there, it seems, meron pa akong ganun, it seems you copied your answer from this site. Ganyan. Okay, this is plagiarism and may this serve as a warning to you. Parang ganyan. I will give you another chance to answer the question and I hope this time you will try to answer it coming from your own construction of knowledge. So I don't even give a grade of 4. I ask the students to repeat the particular requirement, or even redo the whole thing. There was one instance that one of my students at the doctoral level plagiarized the whole final exam. So I told the student, sabi ko, paano niya kinopya mo lahat? So I said, okay, repeat the exam. At this point, your class standing is 4. Your class standing is 4. And you can only get a grade of 3 or 5. Okay? So, and that means you have to get good grades in your other classes so that you can get the required GWA to be conferred a degree. Or you may opt to just repeat the whole thing and get a good grade. Pero ganun pa rin yun, 3 pa rin lang yung makukuha niya doon. But the thing is, at a doctoral level, I really don't expect the student to plagiarize, but they still do. Even despite the so many reminders that you do. Hindi ko alam, akala siguro nila makakalusot sila. So, ayun, I don't know if the student is still enrolled in our program. So, very sad, very sad. So, we always have to emphasize that. Among our students. Sabi ko nga, buti hindi kita kinasuhan. Kasi pag kinasuhan ka, may expelled ka pa. Mas mahirap, di ba? Mas mahirap yung record na expulsion. Okay? Sabi ni Ma'am Rose, I allow my students to recite using the chat box. Yes, to accommodate everyone. You're right. So they can participate. They can participate orally. They can participate using the chat box. If they have difficulty, like for instance, turning on their camera and also yung internet bandwidth nila is low. So, pwedeng chat box, pwedeng nga sabihin nila, ma'am, ite-text ko na lang, pwede ba i-text ko na lang yung sagot ko? Something like that, okay? Okay, noted, Ma'am Heidi. I am the only participant in my campus. Ito yung sa group work. Ma'am Grace, can you email at us po para matingnan namin yung concern ninyo? And then, i-check kasi rin namin yung nasa main campus. Para matingnan natin kung paano yung pagiging group ninyo. Okay? Kay Ma'am Jocelyn. I let them improve their work. Yes, kapag nakita natin na nagkopya muna sila. I usually subject students' papers to plagiarism check, yes, and send them the results. O, yun ay kay Ma'am Zaida. Yeah, we usually have yung turn it in as software, but somehow not all universities can purchase it. Meron namang mga libreng software din. May libreng software din na we can use to check for plagiarism. Ako nga simpleng Google search lang lumalabas na. Lumalabas na kung saan kinopya nung estudyante. Ito kay Ma'am Lisa, ang hirap naman po noon 2.0 dapat ang GWA tapos may 3 ka. Tama 'yon. Pero kasi you should know that. I mean, di ba? Sa simula pa lang ng pagpasok mo sa program, sinabihan ka na. Part of our orientation to our students, and I think this is something that you should also consider in your respective universities, yung GWA that they should get so that they can be conferred a degree, and the policy on academic honesty or dishonesty. So alam ng estudyante yan. And in my case, for instance, that is also part of my course guide. Huwag kayong mag-cheat. Don't commit that academic dishonesty. Kasi napakahigpit ng university when it comes to that. It's really expulsion, di ba? Ganon, or suspension, di ba? At nasa record mo yon. Nasa record mo yon pag na-expel ka. Ganon. So, kung naka-3 ka, siguraduhin mo na mataas ang mga grades mo sa ibang subjects mo para maka-2 ka pa rin. Actually, Ma'am Lisa, 1.75 pagka-doctoral. Hindi, yung 2.0 natin sa master's yun. No? So, talaga mahihirapan ka na talaga if you have a 3, a grade of 3. Okay, so kay Ma'am Perlita, one of my get to know you, bring me your mother. I like that. When brought he or she should tell something about the student. I like that, isasama. At saka, alam mo kagandahan dun, Ma'am Perlita, you involve the whole family. You involve the whole family in your class. I mean, this is something that can motivate our students. I mean, if there is that kind of involvement, in fact, in one of my sessions, I also say, I also mentioned storytelling, and then relate to the lesson, diba? So we can devise many strategies like that. Okay. Kay Ma'am Mary G, I take a screenshot of the output, removing the names and send it to without any word. Okay. Oo nga. Tapos yung owner, sabi niya, teka, and send it to our GC without any word. The owners would message me and that is the time for me to say what I need to say. Oo. Hindi mo sinasabi kung sino, pero inilabas mo dun sa para i-message ka rin. Okay? So from Ma'am Shaira, ayan. For your related concerns, please email model@upou.edu.ph kung hindi kayo maka-access, kung grouping, etc. Please email Ma'am Shaira. So that we can address your concern. From Sir Ronald, perhaps we can check Module 3 activity per section. Until now, we don't know who our... Shai, can we look? Because I think this is part of the activity. So, hindi pa nila alam kung sino yung group leader nila. And so they don't know whom to communicate with. From Ma'am Florence, I let my students so plagiarize, repeat the activity. Yes, same thing with me. Both the students who share their output to their classmates, pareho mo silang paulitin. In fact, ang ginagawa ko nga, ibang activity yung pinapagawa ko na with the same learning outcome. Para mag-isip sila talaga. Ganon. So, usually kapag matagal na tayong nagtuturo, marami na tayong mga compilation of learning activities. So, if pumipili ako doon, so I asked them to repeat that particular requirement, pero iba yung kanilang gagawin. From Ma'am Madonna, I would like to emphasize the topic you have mentioned about humanizing our online class. Yes, it is very effective. It provides deeper connection to teachers and students, sharing about yourself. Exactly, yun yung sinabi ko kanina. Things that you love to do, and that it will encourage sharing among our students as well, right? Same thing with your student, knowing them a little bit more than just their names. And the eye contact, a great reminder that there is a person behind the computer. So yeah, we always have to be reminded of that. I mean, they may not open their cameras, but we should always be reminded that there is that person behind that computer, and we should consider what they are feeling, what is their context. So we have to be mindful of that. Okay, so I think this is the last. Thank you very much. Yes, Ma'am Perlita. Thank you also. Thank you very much for the very active participation, for sharing your insights. As I always say, I look at each webinar session as a learning experience for me as well. Kasi I learn from your experience, I learn from your sharing, and something that I also share when I do webinar sessions like this. I mean, different audience, sometimes nga foreigner, I mean foreign universities, and I do webinar sessions. Then I also share, this is the context in the Philippines, and this is because of our culture. Therefore, this is how we address problems when it comes to online learning. Okay, so from sabi ni Shaira, wala na raw question from our YouTube live. So just thanking us again. I also thank everyone. I also thank you all for being with us this afternoon. May session pa tayo bukas. Ako uli bukas. Kayo ba ay bakunado na? Oo. Kasi the reason why I had to reschedule this session was this was supposed to happen last Thursday, because that was the schedule of my second dose. And it turned out na yes, there were may side effect eh. May side effects. So kaya I was sabi ko nga mabuti na nga lang nag-reschedule, because I don't think I would be able to deliver a webinar session after that vaccination. So for about 2-3 days, hindi maganda. I was not feeling well. So I hope that I hope everyone here also we can be protected. There is that extra protection. There is that extra protection for us so that we can continue doing our work. So I'll see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be discussing the trends, the emerging trends in education. So thank you very much. Thank you. And mag-prepare na rin kayo ng ating mga pag-uusapan bukas with the topic emerging trends in education, something that we should consider doing even now in our virtual classroom. Some of them can be done now, but some is something that we can consider after the next normal. So tomorrow again at 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock. So I think you will again be sent the link to our session tomorrow. So thank you very much, and let's continue to stay safe. Okay? Ano ba? Nagpi-picture taking pa ba kayo, Shai?
Hindi na po, ma'am.
Hindi na. Okay, sige. So again, the learning activity will be uploaded in our course site. Okay? So thank you very much.